If you've ever toyed around with emulation, you've surely tried or at least seen a handful or more ROM hacks, be it some sort of fan translation or a brand new adventure reusing sprites or gameplay mechanics from a famous game. They might not be that uncommon, but what is seeing one of them become their own fully fleshed game. That's exactly the case for Path of the Midnight Sun, originally a Fire Emblem 8 ROM hack which, after a successful Kickstarter, is now heading its way onto Steam later this year. We got a chance to check out the closed beta of this game, featuring the first 8 chapters, and decided to share our thoughts on it. As one would expect from a beta build, it has a few technical hitches, which the developer is very well aware of and is hard at work fixing them. So if you see any weird performance hiccups in the footage, it is most likely that. This is an early beta build of the game. Keep that in mind. So for the story here, the plot begins when Suzaku is woken up in the middle of a forest by a girl called Shiori. He doesn't seem to remember who he is or what he's doing, although he is tormented by visions of his memory, where he's depicted as someone terrible. It doesn't take long before the two of them are attacked by a group of monsters. According to Shiori, this has been an ongoing issue for a while, with animals being corrupted by the evil power of the Demon King. He was supposedly defeated 21 years ago and sealed inside the body of a vassal, since he could not be killed. But after seeing these incidents grow in frequency, the clergy of Pylan began to suspect the vassal and dispatched 2 agents to quietly investigate her. Those 2 agents being, of course, Shiori and the now amnesiac Suzaku, who in reality is, or used to be, the captain of the Holy Swords of Pylan. The 2 of them head to a nearby village to gather more information. Right after, the game changes the point of view from Suzaku to Faratras. She is the princess of the kingdom of Hoikade and the vassal of the Demon King. She spends most of her time duly fulfilling her duties and is respected by everyone around her. That is until one day when she is suddenly betrayed by the guards of the castle, now under some mind control curse. They try to kill her. She is then saved by a mysterious hooded man, and the 2 of them make their quick escape out of the castle. On their flight, they cross paths with Suzaku, who lends them a hand and heads towards the kingdom of Magnolia to better assess their situation. Just from the story and characters alone, it becomes quite clear that this is a game that has its roots in a Fire Emblem game. But that's not where the similarities end, as one can also see the influence in the gameplay segments as well. However, Path of the Midnight Sun ditches the strategy gameplay in favor of regular turn-based JRPG combat, but it still retains enough depth to make these encounters interesting. While in battle, you can actually see the order of the attacks being displayed in the top right portion of the screen, and you should keep them in mind as some attacks might be more effective depending on when they are performed. That being said, I wish there was a way to completely disable all attack animations during fights, or perhaps if a battle speed up function was implemented. While the live 2D animations add some flair and vitality to the encounters, when you have a full party and are fighting 5 or 6 enemies at once in a single turn, it might take upwards of a minute, which can feel tiring after a while. Outside of battles, you also get to explore the places you visit. These segments work like a point-and-click game where you can interact with your environment and talk to the locals, some of whom might actually have a quest for you. Here you can also buy equipment and supplies for your adventures. Besides money, the game also has other management elements to it. From time to time during the visual novel segments, you will be given choices to make, and depending which you pick, you might improve your relationship with your companions, and even your own mental state, in the form of sanity. Sanity affects how you perform during combat, influencing things such as your accuracy or your mana regeneration efficiency. Another factor that conditions your sanity is the hunger meter, which depending on which difficulty you play on, might be more or less strict. From what I played, these systems were well implemented and didn't feel too obtrusive or overwhelming. But since this video is meant to be about my general impressions with the game, I think I should also bring up some of my concerns so far. Besides the aforementioned speed up option, there's also a couple of things that I would like to see implemented for the final build of the game. The first one has to do with the general quality of life features, especially in regards to the visual novel portions. For example, a shortcut to directly access the backlog without needing to go into a different menu, simply using your mouse scroll wheel upwards. That would be appreciated. And speaking of menu navigation, I feel it would be a lot smoother if one could go back by clicking the right mouse button. There was also no way of skipping text, even if you'd already previously read it, which I think is a feature that should be implemented. As far as difficulty options, while the game gave quite a few to choose from, I believe some might need a bit more tweaking. I appreciate that the game included a story mode for those who didn't want to bother too much with the gameplay itself, but after giving it a shot, I still found it to be somewhat challenging, especially in the final map that was included in this beta. As the game already had an easy mode, I think story mode should instead be almost like playing with cheats on. One shouldn't even have to worry about seeing the game over screen if they were to pick this difficulty. And on a more general note, from what I've seen from the story, I did get the feeling that at times the plot was designed around the battles rather than the other way around. If you have played a Fire Emblem game before, especially the older ones, you might know what I'm talking about. But in those games, some battles existed simply for the sake of having some gameplay to break up the constant story. I think people who struggle to play a full visual novel game might appreciate this approach, but for those who just want a focused story, it might occasionally become slightly aimless. Then again, this is just a matter of which audience this game is aiming for. Overall, I believe Path of the Midnight Sun has quite a lot of potential in it. The balance between the genres was just right, with neither of them being neglected nor overstaying their welcome. If the technical issues are ironed out and some quality of life improvements are added by the time of release, I feel it might be a very solid recommendation for those who want to play this type of visual novel JRPG hybrid. Alright, many thanks to Miguel Marin for writing this preview for us. Go follow him on Twitter with the links in the description. And thanks to the developer for providing this beta test. Go check it out on Steam. You can wishlist it if you want to. It should be out later this year. Check out some of our other stuff. We got a lot of stuff.